If you have your Bible, turn with me to the book of Hebrews, chapter 11. Today we're going to find a person you wouldn't really think of being in the In Faith's Hall of Fame, given her profession. But we'll get to her in just a minute. We'll start at verse 29. By faith they passed through the Red Sea by dry land, which the Egyptians essayed to do were drowned. Of course, that being where the Lord parted the Red Sea for the children of Israel to walk across on dry land. Now, that to me, in my view, would be a very easy walk of faith. I mean, it's a long way, but if you see the water dried up in front of you and something blocking the Egyptians from coming and getting you, pretty good idea to go ahead and go, right? But I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of faith that was involved in that, but verse 30, it says, by faith the walls of Jericho fell down after there were compassed about 7 days. Now that one seems like to me it would take a lot more faith to really do, and a lot more discipline. One of the things that they taught the children of Israel they were to do to be able to take Jericho was to walk around the city once a day for 6 days. Now the plan doesn't make sense in man's eyes, right? I mean, what good is it going to do you to walk around the city 6 times? Once a day for 6 days. I mean, in my mind, it's like that's nothing that will work, right? But here's the thing. God's testing their obedience. If they're willing to do what God says to do. And then on the 7th day, they're to march around it 7 days. So we'll go to the book of Joshua. And we'll pick up the story at that spot in Joshua chapter 6. In verse 15, it said, it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day, and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. Now they went around the city 7 times now. They went around it, marched around it. And also another thing that it says earlier in the chapter, they were not to say a word. Now imagine that. You're around people that you know and you love and you're appreciative of them. But when you're going around the city and you're around them, no speaking. Everybody knows me. I like to talk. I like to tell dad jokes and everything. There's even somebody said that they remember me from working at Kroger because I was that round guy that told dad jokes. Fair enough. So talking is the thing that I like to do. I like to talk. I like to talk to folks. But in this, they were instructed not to speak on those 6 days when they went around the city. But then they're allowed to say and do something afterwards. Listen to what it says. And it came to pass at the 7th time when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua and the people's shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. If you knew the Lord had given you a city, would you shout? Yeah. Can you shout, the Lord has given you a city, a new Jerusalem that you're going to be at one day? Yeah. And even your home that you have now is a blessing, right? But think you got a heavenly home. We just told about it. Is that worth shouting? Well, that was the instruction here, was shout, for the Lord hath given you this city. And the city shall be accursed, even it and all therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are in her house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. Now, I'm going to get to her in just a minute. And ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, unless you make yourselves accursed. When you take the accursed thing and make the camp of Israel a curse and trouble it. But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord, and they shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted when the priest blew the trumpets. And it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. Now, let me tell you something else. Archaeologists say they have found Jericho. Now, I don't doubt it. You know, they're out there looking for it. And they said the walls of Jericho have fallen outward. What is the significance of that? If this is indeed Jericho and the walls fell out, it's as if the people inside of it pushed them down. You know, you would think that maybe it was because they had been pushed down by the children of Israel. No, the reason these walls fell is because of the work of God. He laid those walls down flat. And if he lays them outward, it looks like it probably was. Do you think the Lord gives us clues on these things? Maybe. No. Hope so. Yeah. But Joshua had, this is verse 22, it says, but Joshua had said unto the two men that had spied out the country, go into the harlot's house, and bring out thence the woman and all that she hath, as ye swear unto her. Now this is Rahab. Now this is the person that I spoke at the first. You wouldn't really think of her as being a person that would have faith. So let's take a look at her description in the book of Hebrews that we're at. And see what her testimony is. Hebrews chapter 11. In verse 31. By faith the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. So what did Rahab do for these people? This is God's people, and she had a testimony that was very interesting. Let's go to Joshua chapter 2, and we'll see what it says. Chapter 2, verse 1. And Joshua the son of Nun sent out unto Shittim 2 men to spy secretly. Go view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into a harlot's house named Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, there came men in hitherto night of the children of Israel to search out the land. So the king knows they're there. The king of Jericho knows these 2 spies are there. And they're going to look for them. Would you do the same thing? I mean, think about it. If you had the charge of a nation, would you look for spies that are trying to spy out your land? Does not the United States even have that? You know, FBI, CIA are looking for spies. They're trying to spy our land. The children of Israel had 2 to spy out Jericho. And they're at Rahab's house. In verse 4 it says, and the woman took the 2, verse 4, and the woman took the 2 men and hid them and said, thus there came men unto me, by which not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Hither the men went, I wot not. Pursue after them quickly, or ye shall overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. So she has hid these men, and she told the people that are looking for the spies, go catch them. I don't know where they went. Go catch them. But she had them hid on the rooftop. Pretty good place to hide somebody, right? I mean, think about it. I mean, I don't know how they made houses that day, but, you know, if you put them on the back side of the house, you hid them among the stalks, which, you know, they put some vegetation around them. They ain't going to find them like that. Why else are they not going to find them? Because of God's providence. His sovereignty. Why did Rahab do all this, though? Verse 8. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof. And she said unto the men, I know that the Lord hath given you the land. How would she know? And that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. She had heard about what had happened in Egypt. Now here's something else. You can hear about something, right? Even in that day, there wasn't any internet or printing presses or anything of that nature, but you could hear somebody talking about it, right? So she's heard about the Red Sea being dried up, but she said how the Lord done it. I'll ask you a question. Do you think the Lord's already talked to Rahab before these 2 spies ever arrived on the scene? Do you think the Lord has said, this is my child? She's already born again. She's already one of his. But now she's acting like one that knows it. Continuing in verse 10 says, and that ye did unto the kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of Jordan, Shion and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed. And my father has talked a lot about Og and his bed. They took his bed and they measured it in the book of Deuteronomy. And according to the approximation of how big this bed was, it's an iron bed that is 13.5 feet tall and about 6 feet wide. Whoever owned that bed is a big man. We don't know the exact measurements of the king, but we know his bed's huge. And if you remember correct, and if you think about it, Goliath was 9.5 feet tall himself. And they utterly destroyed these 2 kingdoms. Why? Because God was pleased to do so. It was all on the Lord. The Lord was with them on each of those occasions, right? She realizes this. Rahab knows it. Rahab knows the reason. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. for the Lord your God, He is God in heaven and above, and in earth beneath. Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I have showed you kindness, that you will show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token. She has now got these men of God, these men that are followers of the God of heaven. Can you help me out? Is there anything wrong with that? Not necessarily. I mean, Peter said when he walked on the water, when he started to sink, he said, Lord, save me. Very much similar idea here, right? Lord, save me because I know this is your land. I know this is the land that God's going to give you, and there's nothing we can do about it. And that you will save alive my father and my mother and my brethren and my sisters, and now all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. And the men answered her, our life for yours. If ye utter not this our business, and it shall be when the Lord hath given us the land, we will deal kindly and truly with thee. And she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. So part of the wall of Jericho is her house. Her house is on top of the wall. Now, you remember what it talked about in that very verse we were at? All the walls have fell except her house. Did the Lord deliver? Yeah. Absolutely. Do you think He'll deliver us? Yeah. But here's something else about this. Look at you reading on. It says, and she said unto them, get you to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourselves there 3 days. And the pursuers returned, and afterward you may go your way. And the men said unto her, we will be blameless of this thine oath, which thou hast made us swear. So by faith, Rahab has done something amazing. And the Lord heard the prayer and heard the testimony, right? But here's something else that we notice about this. Let's go to the book of James, chapter 2. Now, she has faith, right? We've established that she has faith. In the book of Hebrews, it says, by faith. By faith, she hid these guys. But there's something else about this. And we're going to read a lot to get down to this. James chapter 2 and verse 14. What doth it profit, my brethren, though man may say he hath faith and have not works, can faith save him? If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be warm and filled, notwithstanding give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit? Even so, faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone. Yea, a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. What are we talking about here? The faith is proven to anyone around you by the works that you do. What you do speaks louder than what you say. Thou believest that there is one God, thou doest well. The devils also believe and tremble. So now there's something else. The Lord, a lot of people say all you got to do is believe the Lord and accept Him. Well, the devils believe. They know He's there. One of the times when the Lord cast out a demon, the demon said, now, are you here to torch us before the time? They knew who Jesus was, and they knew He was the King. Wilt thou know, O vain man, faith without works is dead? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac upon his son upon the altar? Seeing thou how faith wrought his works, and by works was faith made perfect. And the scripture was fulfilled, which saith, Abraham believed God, and was imputed unto him for righteousness. And he was called the friend of God. Why? Because he showed the faith he had. His faith accompanied the works. That we talked about it a couple weeks ago when we talked about Abraham. When he was told to offer Isaac, he believed that he was able to raise Isaac from the dead. He figured that's what was going to happen. His faith was proven by what he was willing to do. Is our faith proven by what we're willing to do? Verse 24. You see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith alone. You see, we're justified in the eyes of God by the blood of Jesus Christ. That's how you're going to heaven. That's how you're a just person to begin with. Then you can be justified by faith in your own conscience. But if anybody else knows, how are you just seen as a just person in other people's eyes? By what you do. And the works bear witness to your faith. Likewise, also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works? Oh, here we are. There's Rahab again. She's justified by works. These men that she hid knew she was one of his, because she had the faith to hide them instead of squeal on them. I mean, think about it. She could have turned them into the authorities, right? She could have done a lot of things. There's a lot of things that she could have done. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot justified by works when she had received the messengers and sent them out another way? For the body without the spirit is dead. So faith without works is dead also. What does it say? Your faith, if it doesn't have works with it, will not profit you anything. Can your faith direct your works? Or should it? Should your faith in the Lord Jesus Christ direct what you do? Should your faith look to Him in the things that we do and say? She was justified by faith in the things that she did. And she was justified works in what she saw by everybody else. Those spies knew she was a person of faith because of what she'd done. Does anybody know that you're a person that follows the Lord Jesus Christ by what you do? In verse 32, and I'm going to be like he was, going to kind of glance at a couple of these. They're here. And what shall I say? What shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon. Gideon, who was taken to the armies of Midian with 300 men. Barak and Samson. Samson was a man of faith, although it didn't show very often. But think about this. What would you do if you had 1,000 men after you and all you had for a weapon was the jawbone of a donkey? I don't like my chances unless the Lord's with me. And by faith, Samson was able to do it, right? Now, there's some things that Samson did was questionable. Absolutely. Haven't we all? Of Jephthah, of David. How many times did David show his faith against Goliath as the king of Israel? Was there times that David had messed up? Absolutely. At times that he messed up our own record for us. How many of you are thankful that the Lord shows when we mess up, so we might not mess up again? And Samuel of the prophet. Samuel was a prophet. Interesting they mentioned Samuel. Samuel is the one that had to tell that King Saul is no longer king. Would that take any faith? And he was called as a very young man. When Samuel was called to be a prophet, he was very young. He was actually going to the guy that was taking care of him and said, when the Lord called him, said, Samuel, and he goes to the guy that's taking care of him, behold, here am I. And the guy's like, I didn't call you. The Lord called him. He called him to do some amazing things, right? Yeah. We hear as here I'll raise my Ebenezer. Well, he's the one that raised Ebenezer because this was where the Lord had helped us. Did Samuel have great faith? Absolutely. How do we know it? Because the things that Samuel had done. As a matter of fact, he's the one that discovered that King David was to be king. He went to the house of Jesse as the Lord had commanded him. And Jesse brought all of his sons, all the ones that were strapping young men, you know, the handsome ones, the older ones. And now none of them were it. And Samuel said, I'm paraphrasing, it's not KJV. He said, do you have anybody else? We have a young one that he's out keeping the sheep. The least likely of the bunch of the children of Jesse, that's the one, David. Now, David was a man of war. He was a man that was a shepherd. Is that not fitting that the Lord picks a shepherd for the sheep? Does that make sense? It does me when you think about it. Is not the Lord smarter than we are? I mean, really. Verse 33, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of the lions. That's interesting. And stop the mouth of the lions, who would you think that might be? That is David. Remember what he told Samuel when he's facing Goliath? He had Goliath. I'll go take this uncircumcised Philistine. Is there not a cause? And then he says, I mean, inside Samuel says, and Saul, King Saul says, you can't do it. This man's a man of war. You're but a youth. And then David said, I was the keeper of my father's sheep. And I smote a lion and a bear. Can the Lord help us through? Yeah. Absolutely. Can he go with us? Guys, keep us? Yeah. We got two people that knows he can. But all these things were done through people that have faith that the Lord was able to do exceedingly abundantly above all they ask or think. See, that's the thing. The thing of faith. See, faith is the fruit of the Spirit. It's God being in you. God gave you faith. If you have faith, God give it to you. But if you use it, it's a big help to you. His faith is amazing. His ability is amazing as well. It's God's ability that goes with it, right? When you say that you have faith, what are you saying? You're saying that you have a sovereign God that is indeed able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you ask or think. I spent all day praying for something. I had specific things, and then the thing that I least likely thought of show back up. Is God good or what? God is amazing. And here's the other thing. Never forget He's in control. There's a man that I used to really enjoy hearing, and there's one thing he said, and 6 things to remember in a time of crisis. And the number one thing, remember God is still on the throne. And that's pretty good. That's good enough. So remember that God's still able and still in charge. He's still the king. I have another friend of mine, Elder Glenn Blanchard from Winter Garden, Florida. He used to have a Bible much like this one. Didn't say Holy Bible on the front of it. Just had a blank front. He had a marker and he put on it, Jesus wins. I'm good with that. Why? Because we have victory in Jesus, right? Faith. And talked about in the first chapter, in the first verse of this thing, says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Can you say by faith, the Lord's been with us? By faith, we can follow Him. May the Lord bless you and keep you is our prayer.